for 10 seconds so that we can catch it.
We are alive.
And I will also record. All right, still a few participants rolling in. So Karen, if you can help me with getting those folks admitted, I would greatly appreciate it. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn, part of the Train the Trainer course and effort this summer, collaboration between the Virginia Department of Education, Virtual Virginia, and VISTI. Putting together this course and this opportunity to really get our minds around learning management systems, particularly the use of Canvas going into this fall and reopening schools and all of the kind of excitement and wonder and a little bit of anxious worry about what that's going to look like. So we're joining together to figure out what they put in place for teachers, help them make that transition into the fall with going online at the beginning of the school year. And so we've hosted these lunch and learns, just bringing in a few people that are a few steps ahead of us, and some that have been practicing learning management systems and being online for quite some time during these lunch and learns. And today I would like to, oops, one too many. There we go. Welcome Katie Fielding and Elizabeth Biz Summers. Katie is an instructional technology coach in Prince William County Schools. She is the VISTI 2019 Coach of the Year, a Google Innovator and Trainer, a member also of Unison EDU. So connect with that group as well. You can connect with Katie on Twitter at KatieF. And Elizabeth Biz Summers is an instructional technology coach at Fred Lynn Middle School in Prince William County. She has been in education for 16 years, teaching language arts before moving into a coaching role. And Biz is particularly passionate about helping teachers and students use technology tools to increase their productivity. And you can find her at Busy ITC, and hopefully they'll put those in the chat so you can connect with them on social media. But welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here today. Your topic for today, embedding content and mystery paths. Katie, why don't we start with you? Kind of why did you choose that as your topic? What's exciting? What do folks need to know about these topics?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the embedding content. Biz is going to talk about the mastery paths. I chose embedding content because this is where we can really make Canvas a really rich atmosphere and environment for our students to do work in. And the more that we can put in Canvas itself, the less students have to go outside of Canvas. So that's really a bonus to using Canvas, is I think keeping kids in those screen, especially kids with like executive functioning issues, keeping them in the same place and not having them to have to go to 10 tabs is going to be really essential to helping their workflow.
Right. Yeah. Great to make the most of that tool. And again, especially for, younger learners, and, that's, keeping it all in one place and that one stop for them is a great idea. So, Biz, what about you? What's exciting about this? What do you think people are going to be really interested in knowing about these topics?
Well, for me, I'm talking about mastery paths because it's one thing that I really spent a lot of time digging into when we got into Canvas. It's a little harder to get started with, but once you do, the way you can get students to have differentiation be automated and take that off an instructor's plate, but really give them the content that's most meaningful for them based on what they know is huge. It's also a great way to introduce different aspects of choice and letting students do a little bit of self-guided participation. And I think that having both of those things in one tool is just incredible.
Yeah, great. Now you've both have mentioned as you've gotten into Canvas with Prince William County, how long have you guys been at this with the use of Canvas?
Just since March.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
Biz and I and a couple other colleagues have just really dove in and spent the past 5 months just going hard on Canvas. So. Yeah.
Well, great. So you've been at it for 5 months. We've been kind of at this for about 5 weeks. So just learning the lessons you've learned and the things that you've picked up along the way. We appreciate you being willing to share that. And you've put together some resources. Let me get to this next slide. So tell us a little bit about these resources and what's available there.
Yeah. So the first one that I'm going to be showing and going over is embedded.com itcsforall.com. That's going to take you to the Canvas course that I'm going to show you. And there's actually 2 modules that you'll be able to find in the Commons and pull into your courses that you might share with your teachers to help them see the ways to embed content, as well as do some SPED and L accessibility accommodations, which I think are always really important to keep at the forefront of our minds, no matter what we're designing in Canvas. And the second item that I shared, accessibility or access, right? Or what do we got? Oh, this is, yeah. Oh, access.itcs.com. Yeah, sorry. That is a Wakelet that I'll be showing you of 10 steps to check your pages for accessibility.
And mine is mastery.itcsforall.com. Right now, that'll just link you to a YouTube video that I made that covers just the same stuff that I'm going to talk about today as kind of a recap. But I am going to also continue to be building out on that link.
Well, great. We'll make sure we'll put those in the chat today for folks to access, and we'll also make sure we're posting that to the class, the course, and that way they can get to these resources, because I know you guys have spent a lot of time, well, at least 5 months, learning about this and building those up. And I've seen a couple of things that you all have shared via Twitter and valuable resources for folks who are trying to navigate through all the possibilities and all the things that Canvas offers, and how to make the most of those to get off to a good start this year. So getting off to a good start, why don't I stop sharing my screen? So Katie, you can take over and share your screen, and then we'll take it from there.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you so much, Rod. So what you see on my screen right now is the page or a rich content editor that you will see on any page, any assignment, any announcement. You'll see this screen, and this box is where you put all of your content. If you're not familiar with this box, you have ways to do paragraph styling and fonts, the colors, paragraph adjustments, bulleting, indentions. And then you have linking images, media, a document. And where the money is, or can be, is this plugin. So that's where you can plug in some external tools. You also have doing math text, tables, and clearing the formatting of everything. You can do that right there. In the bottom right corner of the rich text editor, you'll see that it says switch to raw HTML editor. So you can go behind the curtain basically and change the code and add code to embed materials. So I'm going to show you an example of that. So this is the Wakelet that I made and referenced, and it has 10 tips to make sure your web pages are accessible. Wakelets are a great way to share resources with students in Canvas. I really like it because I can embed this page into Canvas, and as I update this Wakelet over the day, the month, the year, it continually updates in the page itself. So I don't have to continually go and update my resources in Canvas for 5 different classes if I just have one resource page for all of my classes. So that can be really useful to a teacher. Additionally, Wakelet is a really good, yeah?
Hey, Katie. This is Karen. Can we just hop in real quick? And I have somebody to admit, sorry. So just for purposes of folks who may not be quite as geeky and connected as we all might be, could you give us a 10-second overview of what Wakelet is?
Sure.
So they'd understand what they might use it for and embed it. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Wakelet is a place to collect text, video, web links in one space. To share a collection of information. So in my Wakelet here, it's a Canvas accessibility checklist. You can see that I've shared even a Google document, a website, and then I have 10 tips, which I've added as text. The really nice thing about Wakelet is it has immersive reader built in. So if I have that student that needs those reading accommodations, it's built into the page already, and they can even do the translation feature that's built into immersive reader. That's a really nice feature built into Wakelet. That's my Microsoft product, the immersive reader part, not Wakelet itself. Wakelet is free. You just sign up. You can sign up with your Google account. You can sign up with a Microsoft account. You can sign up just with an email. Free. You can make as many collections as you want. There is no limit. You can share and collaborate with people. So you can see that I have some collaborators on here. And I can share it with anyone by just sharing a link. But what I was going to show
Thank you very much.
Yeah. But what I was going to show you is the embed option. So when I click that share button, I have this option to embed. And there are lots of tools online like Padlet, Flipgrid. They all have embed codes somewhere if you look. Kahoot, quizzes. Somewhere in the sharing, they all say, like you might see it, it will say embed. And it may look a little discreet, but you're going to want to start looking for those embed codes. So I'm going to click embed. I can modify the way it looks if I want, but I kind of just like how it is standard. And I'm going to copy that embed code. Then I'm going to go back to Canvas, and in that back end, that back behind the curtain part of Canvas, I'm going to paste that code. And when I go back to the front, my wakelet's going to be there. You'll see it's kind of narrow on just one side, but once I save it, it's going to widen and it's going to take up the space of the window. Oh,
hey, Katie.
Yeah.
Is that, as you enter a title, can you tell me, is that when you embed it, does it respond well to the device that it's on? I know a regular wakelet does.
Yes, it does. And I also recommend, and this is an accessibility thing, not much just recommend, I like demand actually before. I want to put the actual direct link to the wakelet on the page. So let me actually do that. So we always want to share the direct link. So if a student is using a screen reader, all that embed stuff isn't really great with a screen reader. So if you do have those students that need those accommodations, I recommend first putting the direct link to the thing that you're going to embed. And then below it, you're going to put that embedded content. That way, if that student is either on a mobile device, which it may be more friendly, maybe more friendly on the mobile device to just go directly to the website for certain embeds, like a Padlet, that option is there for students. We do want them to stay in the site, which is why we want to embed things, but it's a good option to have that direct link. So I have the link, great for accessibility, and then the wakelet, and then I will say save. And the magic is happening. And of course, it's just going slow. All right, now we'll have it on the page. And so the student can scroll through it, or the teacher could scroll through it and see all of those resources right there. So that's just an example of one thing that you can embed. In the link that I shared with you, embed.itscsforall.com, you have access to this public Canvas course that I've created. And in the course, there are two modules that I want to highlight. At the top, there's this module called Outside Application Integrations. And then below it, there is an app called SPED and L, or SPED and L accommodation considerations. And the first thing in each module is a link to the Commons. If you're not familiar with the Commons in Canvas, this is the public space where you can go and find lessons, find modules, pages, whole courses that you can import into your classrooms. So if you like this module and you want to share it with your teachers, you can go to the Commons and pull it into your sandbox or your course and share it with others. Are there any questions about that? So
checking out the chat, I don't see any, but if there are questions along the way, please do enter those and we'll get them to
yeah,
Katie, thank you.
So I have a whole long list of things that you can embed. Edpuzzle, Google Forms, Quizlet, Kahoots. Each page is a how-to embed it, where you're going to find the code in that tool. So nothing I'm really going to show you all of those right now, but it's a resource for you. Yeah, embedding is just super powerful. Keep the kids in the page and not having to go to 10 different websites can be great. And then the second,
This is Karen. In terms of embedding, is it a one-click? One of the things we've been talking to the coaches about, Katie, is sort of their role in doing the bridge between IT and instructional folks. So for the embedding piece, is there a one check, let you embed everything, or would they have to request embedding, or is it just part of it because it's just that code copy? Does that make sense? Like, do you have to get permission to embed Flipgrid into your Canvas course?
No, not at all, because everyone has the back side of HTML. Everyone has that in the rich text editor. If you have made the Flipgrid and you're able to access the embed code, you can embed it. It's really great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, because we do know there are LTIs, I think,
that is different.
That require. Yes. Yeah, good. Okay, good.
So at the top of this module, actually, I have LTI applications as well, showing you how to do some of those, which is separate from the embedding. So some of the LTIs you may or may not have access to in your district, or they may cost money. So those are at the top of the module, and you might want to explore those. But the key embedding stuff is under embedding content. And those would be, even if you have like a low Nearpod account, you can embed a low Nearpod. You don't have to have that LTI integration. Right. But everything from the Desmos calculator, all that stuff that teachers are using, you can embed.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's perfect. Good to distinguish between those two things. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then just as a tack on, because I like to make sure people are making their stuff accessible, is that SPED and L accessibility accommodation stuff that I shared, and those accessibility tips. So if you have any of the questions about those, feel free to ask me later. But I think we'll move to Biz if we want, and she can talk about Mastery Paths. And I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, that'll be great. And we will share out, they were in the chat, the links to those sites. We'll share that out in the course as well. And thank you, Katie, for opening up the opportunity to sharing those resources and opening that course to also, your 5 months head start. You'll allow a lot of us to catch up quickly on a lot of these pieces. Pretty impressed with what you've assembled in 5 months. That's pretty incredible. So on to Mastery Paths. Biz, what can you share with us?
Sure, yeah. Before I do, I just want to commend Katie's course. I've had a lot of time to actually really look at it, and I think she does a really good job of saying, Nearpod is a great example. If your school pays for it, here's how you can use it. If you yourself pay for it, it's different. So it will serve a lot of people. So I'm going to talk about Mastery Paths, and if you give me just a second to get all my monitors straight, well, appreciate that. Okay. And you guys are good. You can see my screen. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. Like I said, I wanted to talk about Mastery Paths, and this is something that, as I trained my staff on the basics of Canvas last spring, I introduced them to pages and quizzes and discussion boards, and I still haven't formally introduced my entire staff to Mastery Paths because I don't think it's appropriate to start with that. I think that Mastery Paths become really useful when you already have an idea of here's how I teach in Canvas. I'm going to start by, working on pages here for direct instruction and these different activities and learning, because Mastery Paths become important once you can think beyond that into differentiation. Once teachers have, planned out a week or two in advance and they're ready to think about how they can level that instruction, that's when Mastery Paths become important. So I understand that you guys have actually already been talking about Mastery Paths this week. And so if there's anything that I'm saying that's redundant or anything that I'm missing, I would love some feedback. So feel free to interrupt me and tell me if there's something that I should definitely be touching on. And I appreciate that. But otherwise, I'm going to dive into it. I'm going to start by showing you a Mastery Paths example that is that's already built. And you can tell that a module is has Mastery Paths because you'll see it set up there. So there's a couple of things you can do to look at real quick to make sure things are set up correctly. My module right here says Mastery Paths, but I want to also show you quickly how to build one and some things that you should check for. So to create a Mastery Path, what you want to do is think, first, again, like I said, about the learning that a student would be following, but then also how you could differentiate that learning. So for example, if I were teaching about biomes, I have 3 different copies of an article from Newsella or anything else where you can have easily leveled reading. And maybe I've got a copy that's got a lot of information, some extension information, a copy that meets, the basic needs, and then a copy with a lot of support structures. Maybe it's more simplified. In the same way, I've got a discussion board that has fundamentals, as well as a discussion board that has extension. And the same thing, I have an assignment, a Flipgrid assignment that would help me do an extension activity, and a Nearpod activity that would be more of a fundamental learning. And I'm thinking some of my students are going to need different versions of any of these things. And so I'm going to use the mastery paths technique to give them that option, not necessarily option, but based on how they do on an assessment, I'm going to give them the chance to follow through on those. The setup for mastery paths is, my suggestion is to start by building everything out in a module like this. Versions of every activity that you might want them to do. If I know that I want every single kid to read the same article though, that's okay too. I don't need to have multiple examples of everything. I can have one item that's in multiple paths. So the logistics of it involve, actually, before I get into the logistics, I see that there's a lot of stuff coming through in the chat. I'm not actually reading it though. Is there anything I should stop and address?
No, I distracted people with Bitmoji Classroom. Sorry, Biz.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure there were no questions that I needed to jump on top of. That's great. Okay, so the things you need to make sure that you set up first are all of the assignments that are going into a mastery path. When you create those assignments, one thing you'll have to make sure of is that all pages that are in mastery assignments need to have allow in mastery paths checked. Similarly, all assignments, discussion boards, anything except a page that you have in a mastery path, when you create that discussion board, you want to make sure that you have the assignment being not to everyone, which is the default assignment, but make sure that the assignment is to mastery paths. And that is in here to assign to, under assign to, it's the very top option, mastery paths. So you'll want to do that with, that's fine. You'll want to do that with every single assignment or page or discussion or activity that you have within your mastery paths, is make sure that each item is assigned to those kids. Or as assigned to mastery paths and not to specific kids. So you'll go through and you'll make sure, again, pages to check the box, activities, assign, and then what you need to have at the top of every module that follows mastery paths is an assessment activity that will put the student on the correct path. So here's a quiz that I put together. And I just have this as a 1-question quiz. I would probably give students a lot more opportunities to show their learning, but just to show them what mastery paths looks like within here, I have just a 1-question quiz that's going to show students their learning, right? What would you like to earn on this quiz? So I can show you kind of how the mastery works. So I've got a 1-question quiz there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that quiz. If you give me 1 minute, I'm going to edit it. Oh, never mind. I'm going to edit it over in quizzes. That was mastery paths quiz copy. I chose the wrong way to edit it. I always find quizzes to be, new quizzes at least, to be the most frustrating thing to edit the way I want to edit them. You'll set this up when you first create the quiz. The main thing that I want to edit within here is that I want to choose this mastery paths tab. And so when I do, I can choose first how the mastery path is being scored. So I've got this as a 10-point quiz. And so between 7 and 10 points, I want them to complete one set of activities. Between 4 and 7 points, I want them to complete a different set of activities. And here between 0 and 40. And maybe I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to change that to 30. So it's really easy to customize exactly where you want them to be in that. You know, maybe I think this actually should be a higher number, and I'm going to say anybody below 50% needs to do this, and I want the extension activity only to be available at 90%. So that's an option I have. And then I get to go through and customize each one of these paths. And I'm going to show you the middle one, because this is where I like to often give students a choice. So I'm going to say these students who score between 50 and 90, that's a pretty big range. So what are some activities that I might want them to do? Well, I want them to read a biome article, and maybe I want them to read version A, or maybe I want them to read version B. And I'm going to let them choose which one they're going to read. Maybe also, I want them to choose which discussion they're going to do, if they're going to do the fundamentals discussion or the extension discussion. But yeah, and I'm going to give them a choice here too between the extension or the fundamentals assignment, because these kids are sort of in the middle and I want them to be able to pick. So when I click add, all of these things are suddenly added to their task list. But all I have to do is click one of these ands to turn it to an or. And when I do that, then I can say, I want you to read version A or version B, and I can drag that over here. If you're reading version A, then I think you should be doing the Nearpod assignment, and I think you should be doing the fundamentals discussion. And if you're doing the other side of this, I think you should be doing this set of activities. So when the students complete the quiz, they'll have they'll either be assigned to whatever activities I add up here, and if they've got between a 90 and 100%, or if they're below a 50, they'll get whatever activities I add here. But if I want them to have a choice, if I want them to think, and I'm not saying you have to give a choice in this middle range, or you can't give a choice in the other ranges, but I think this is one place where you want to give students some options. Then those students can, as they see these activities, they'll have the option as soon as they take that quiz. All right, you got a 70% on the quiz. Do you want to take this path, or do you want to take this path? And then they have that option. They also get to see the descriptions of the assignments, so that will help them choose the path. Once they choose the path, they can't go back. They're stuck on that path. And that is essentially how you set up a mastery path. Can I pause here if there are any questions about that?
A few comments in there. That's really cool, very powerful. Yeah, so any other questions?
Karen, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about actually using Canvas LMS for the graduate course that I teach in school technology this fall. Most of the students are in school divisions that are going to be adopting it, so it made sense for them to maybe see me do it. And I love this idea because I do want to be able to give them sort of choices of things to do. Does it have to be tied to a quiz grade, or can I just set up mastery paths under a topic that then they could choose? I just want to do the first thing on this one, but I'm going to follow this whole path.
That's a good question. The exam, I always start with a quiz because I think that's the easiest way to show how a...
You teach K-12 too.
Right.
I don't get a lot of quizzes, right? What
you can do is start with an assignment though, or anything. You do have to start with some kind of graded piece. Or a scored piece. You don't necessarily have to include the grade. I had a conversation with some people about this earlier in the year where we talked about how, do you remember like how a magazine quiz, you used to have to take it and you would get a number of points based on your answer to the questions?
Yeah, exactly.
And then it would tell you your personality based on points. Yeah. My thought was that you could use that same technique in an ungraded assignment to have students sort of answer. And I use a quiz because it auto grades. But if you as a teacher you could give them a point value based on their assignment or their point quiz that would put them on a path that would give them similar types of
yeah,
options.
okay, I see it. Yeah, so essentially you'd ask a multiple choice question of of these 3 topics, what would you like to pursue? They'd rank them and get a score on that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so because I just think it could get you beyond places where people could be making decisions about their own paths, but figuring out that little hack piece. It's got to be tied to something that makes the decision about where they go.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
and it does.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
It does have to start with that assessment piece, and if you can make it not an assessment, then your creative thinking will really be able to explode the potential of this.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. I'm going to fiddle around with it. Yeah, but I think this is an incredibly powerful piece as we talk about online learning and sort of when are your kids going to be online and how much can you self-pace them and maybe get away from a lot of live lectures and using that piece for other kinds of things. And I did not know this existed, and I think it's pretty amazing. But as you said at the start, probably you don't want to dive into it maybe immediately. But then, of course, that's what I'm going to do. But I only teach like 7 people, too. So,
well,
yeah, Kelly says, when do you introduce this to your teachers? How far along do you feel people have to be?
I would say a teacher shouldn't be thinking about mastery paths until they already can say, like, I know how I want to approach this week. Like, your priority should be like, especially as we move to this virtual learning, I know what I'm going to teach. Once you know what you're going to teach, and even if it is just 1 week at a time, you can say, okay, I've got this week ready and I still have 2 days before we dive in. So now let me think about how can I pull this apart. So like I said, for me, I wanted my teachers to have the summer to learn Canvas. And then once they have had that chance to put some pieces in place and think about how it works, then I think it's the right time to bring mastery paths into it.
And maybe as with many things, then you just do the mastery path for one topic or unit or module, one in which you know your kids have a pretty wide spread of grades on things or understandings and stuff. Do you have a special tool that generates those different versions of the documents? I know there is software out there that will do it, or are you just locating things and mapping it yourself?
I don't have any great tools. Like I said, I like Newsella for leveled readings. Okay. That's where I got all of this content, but that's paid. Good. That's a paid product.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's one tool. But there's no great automation for this. This is something that, you really have to sit down and kind of map out for yourself. A couple other tips.
Go with Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, but you could go with an article versus a podcast versus a video as well if you wanted to sort of reach out to students in different formats too. Cool. We'd love to hear your tips.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, I think that's a really good idea too, delivering it with different types of accommodations as part of it too. Just the other thing I always forget to say till it's almost too late is that I do always recommend adding requirements and prerequisites for a module with this, because that locks them into taking the quiz first. The quiz or whatever assessment is at the very top of it will lock everything below it. But if you don't have the prerequisites and requirements on it, they will still be able to see all of those options before they do the initial assessment. And that can be a little overwhelming because they might think that they have all of those things ahead of them, when in fact, they only have to take care of 3 things.
So when you mention that and you click there on the 3 buttons for the option, is that to set it for that module or to set it for that quiz? Where is that set that the prerequisite?
Yeah, it's in the module, and I would recommend just to keep things simple for the student end of things, if possible, to try to stick one path in one module. But yeah, you can, I believe, only set that up here at the 3 dots for the mastery paths example in the whole module. And so prerequisites if you want to, but I would always say that the requirement should be that students must complete all of the requirements in sequential order. And then if they do that, then their view, that's fine. Then their view is going to be more limited until they're on their correct path.
Okay, yeah, thank you for clarifying. Actually, I said the wrong thing. I said prerequisite, and I meant the requirement. So that's the first one is required, then it opens up. So would the students be able to go to modules and see like all of that and access those, or is there an intention on hiding it from them, or is it just if they follow that mastery path, it makes it, kind of sets that path for them?
So the requirement, putting the requirement on it is what hides everything below it from them, just so it's not overwhelming.
Right.
Would you like to see this from a student view?
Oh yeah, if you could toggle over and show us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm very thankful that some of my ITC friends have kids within our county, and they have volunteered them as tribute throughout the summer to let us kind of play with their accounts. Because I know that you've seen the student view of this, but it's sometimes a little limited in what you can actually get out of it. So this is one of our students who would be in this class, and this mastery path is the one that I already have set up. And you'll see that as soon as I look at this as a student, it just says, there's no more of this module for you. You have to do your quiz first. So if I, as a student, take the quiz, and I'm going to choose, because I want you to see the choice option. As the student, I'm going to choose the middle option. I'm going to choose to get a middle, like a 70% or whatever. You'll, of course, have to be patient with my internet.
Yeah. So the one that you've set up, it does kind of address what Karen was asking. This is more a survey versus a quiz. Any answer is that's going to start the path based on their answer. So it is kind of that choose your own adventure kind of, I guess, approach to this.
Right, exactly. And I set this up the way, if this said, which topic interests you most, or do you prefer to learn by reading or by listening? That would be another great type of question you could put here to get them on a path. So I'm going to go ahead as a student to submit this quiz. And I like the quiz again because it auto grades. Thanks, Madison. And now I'm going to return to my mastery path, and I should, as having had that graded, I should already see my choice. Oh, here it is. I didn't see it because it's giving me the two options. I need to choose my assignment group. So I still don't see my options until I go here. But once I do, it's going to tell me, hey, I have the option of following one of this path here, or I can do this one. And I don't have those activities very well built out, but if I did, like I said, the whole description of the activity would be here. So that would help me as a student make a choice. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this. And as soon as I select it, you'll notice the other one's unavailable. And then I believe you do have to go back to modules. And once you see that again, now I can see just the pieces of the path that are available to me. So like I said, it's a little cleaner when you hide those things. Any other questions about that?
Well, just the asking for the student view, that's always good, and toggling through that just to see what students will see is a good idea. And then I guess the page that you showed us with the selection of the two different paths, that's created as you're creating the mastery path. That landing page for the student is created for you. That there's nothing really you have to do to set that up. It's created behind the scenes kind of.
Correct. So I set that up back here in the mastery path of this quiz. As soon as I clicked that all that setup is done for me. If I had set these activities up without a choice, you would just never get that landing page where you make the choice. Instead, as soon as you took the quiz, the activities I wanted you to do would appear, and you wouldn't have the choice path too. So there's actually, different levels of how much you can put into this for the students to choose versus for their score to choose.
Great. Well, thank you for kind of deconstructing that.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I'm wondering, again, there is a lot of work here in decision making and that sort of thing. One of the things I haven't had time to do is browse the virtual Virginia Commons, which of course everyone will have access to once they're in their instances of it. Do you have any sense of courses being set up with this Mastery Connect piece already, or are people sharing them out? Maybe I'm asking a question none of us know the answer to, but once you get this set up, of course, if you're willing, you could share this back to the Commons to say, here's my take on Mastery Connect for this particular course or this particular piece of the course, and then people could grab it and, fiddle with it and that kind of thing. But I'm wondering if there are a lot of courses that have taken this path, because it is advanced and layered on top of just, here's what I need to get done this week. Any ideas?
I know that Mastery Paths do copy easily. So if I do set this up, it is very easy for all of that setup. If I publish the module to the Commons, it's very easy for all of the setup to come over nice and cleanly. I have no idea. I have not run across anything in the Commons that have Mastery Paths. So I don't know for sure.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Okay, good. But yeah, certainly that's the other piece to continue to encourage people to share things back. And Katie, I was interested in the way you made your course public so people could easily see it and grab the things that they needed as well, because that is a big piece of this. We are all in this together. I think some 100 of 132 school divisions have signed on for this and are somewhere along the path. You're a little further along with your extra 6 weeks or something. So in the old days, if you knew how to put an image on a slide in PowerPoint, you were the guru, right? So you all are the gurus because you got a 6-week head start, and I have a sense that you're overachievers too. But anyway, but the stuff you've created is just amazing. But that idea that as folks in the room start creating things, whether it's professional development resources, but also these kind of course pieces. I know we're working with a guy out in the Roanoke area who's an earth science teacher who discovered actually maybe a couple errors in one of the courses, but also knows a lot about kind of virtual realities and those sorts of things that can be put into it. So he'll recreate it and reissue it as well. So this is all terrific stuff. And that's all I really wanted to say. But anyway, yeah, the sharing piece I think is what's important here. So thank you very much to both of you.
And Mike makes a point in the chat of just this being very adaptive and flexible and just kind of circling back through some of the things that Katie presented, just embedding all kinds of resources and just about anything that you create out there in a variety of these tools will come with that embed code, and opening up that HTML side and just putting that code in there is great. I do like the tip of putting the direct link alongside that. I hadn't really considered that with the accessibility piece before as a companion to the embedded content. That's a really good tip, but being able to do that, and then as you look at that embed code, you'll be able to start to figure a few things out with if it does need to be tweaked as far as like the size and that sort of thing. But it's nice to know that that's adaptable based on the screen that the user has in front of them. So if they're on a phone or a tablet or a PC or whatever, that kind of adjust. That's one of the nice features about that rich content editor. And then the Mastery Path, just the idea behind leveled text and trying to meet students where they are based on those responses does make that very adaptive. And then even thinking through the different types of activities. And I thought about that as the first choice, like, what kind of activity would you like to create? What kind of project would you like to create? Is it a Flipgrid? Is it Nearpod? Is it a video? So just some of those choices at the beginning, right off the bat, maybe the score and the choice as to where that mastery path or learning path will take those students. And then you reemphasize that with the choice by clicking on that and turning it into an or. There's now options for that student. And I think it's a very good point that you made, Biz, around that middle group of what options fit best for them and how you can really begin to customize that for the group of learners that you're working with. That's one of the things that folks are kind of wondering about, developing rapport, trust with the students and giving them some of those choices and some of the feedback around those things to really keep learners engaged and returning, because they do have choices. It sounds pretty pretty basic. It's you have to go through the steps of setting that up or making that available, but there's a lot more going on there than just the choice of which thing they'll read and which activity they'll do. There's a lot going on there to build up the community within your course, especially starting off the year, either with a limited amount of time with students or possibly completely virtual. It's just one more thing that teachers can consider to enhance that learning environment. So thank you again for sharing that. Any other questions as we kind of wrap up for our guests today around the embedding or the mastery path or accessibility? Okay, so the question came in with how well does this interface mesh with iPads? Have either of you seen that on a tablet or an iPad?
The embedding or the mastery paths or Canvas overall?
That's a good question. Mr. Luke, which can you pop that in there? So Canvas in general, I know is visible and interactivity with iPads, but these particular, like the learning objects, I don't know if that's what you were asking. Okay, student view in regards to interaction. So yeah, I guess that would be Canvas LMS as a whole and iPads. Either of you have experience or knowledge of that?
Yeah.
I have you.
Yeah,
go ahead, Katie.
No, go ahead.
Okay, she's going to show us.
I'm going to stop sharing too.
Yeah, so I have it on an iPad. You can see the Wakelets embedded in there really nicely. Let me see about a Padlet example. Padlet's always a nice example of embedded interactive content. Let's see my huge list of things.
So, and Katie, while you're scrolling through that, is that a Canvas app that's been added to your iPad, or is that just from the browser?
Yeah, so this is the Canvas app. All right, so here I have the Padlet. I can scroll over. I can click on things. Yeah, so it's pretty interactive on the iPad. And yesterday, as far as accessibility, I was working with a teacher, and you can turn in the settings of the iPad itself, turn on that zoom and zoom in. You can't, zoom the text any other way. So turning on the zoom feature of the iPad itself and the read aloud of the iPad itself is helpful because that immersive reader is not built in on the app.
If you don't have access to the app for some reason, it's okay in the browser, Canvas in general, but the app itself is much more robust and much easier to navigate.
So if you're going to be on that iPad full time, it would be worth going through the process of installing that app to deliver the content that's in Canvas. Okay, good suggestions
and you
there.
Mentioned, sorry, this is Karen. I was just going to point out that immersive reader. I know it's not the Canvas piece, but I set up a Flipgrid for the virtual conference next week and noticed that Flipgrid has embedded the immersive reader that takes you out to that screen. So I'm happy to see the accessibility taking the forefront. I think in terms of this group and the folks here today and the trainers, it's definitely something we're going to want to keep addressing as well. Over time too, and make sure we are getting to the special education audiences and those kinds of things, but making sure everybody is doing what they need to do in that regard. So I really appreciate that focus for today as well.
So yeah, we've covered a lot of ground with these two topics, and there's I've again learned a lot through this session, and there's lots more to learn. So it's kind of the more you know, the more you can learn. So a couple of different topics, and some of this I've already kind of messaged Katie in the background about incorporating some of the pieces from her course into the fourth module, because that's a lot of the questions that people are asking are around. I know we talked a little about the difference between LTI and editing and using third-party pieces, so that some information about that to kind of clarify that for people, and then some of the different features and functionality in Canvas as far as building. We covered the mastery paths and it's a lot about the how-to, like, you know, how to set those up and where to put the check mark and that kind of thing. But really appreciate the view of the application of that, and not just how it works, but how it can be put to use to support teaching and learning. And that's the really crucial part. Everybody does need to know how those tools work, but they also need those ideas to kind of inspire them as to how they might put them into place and what they'll utilize with their students. So really do appreciate Biz and Katie, you sharing those resources with us today, your expertise, and kind of giving us the tour through what you set up in your course. And then also just, you know, if you saw those Twitter handles earlier, certainly follow those two or search for those two. I know you've shared a lot of resources recently around this topic, and just great stuff out there for teachers to dig into, and resources that you're finding and incorporating into the resources that you're building. So I'll drop it in the chat there, but that connect, collaborate, and contribute, that's our Visti's 3 C's for this adventure in this Train the Trainer course. Connecting with other people that have experience, connecting with other people that have the same kinds of questions, collaborating with one another to build out some of these course modules for the teachers in your school division, and then contributing back to that by sharing out those ideas through social media such as Twitter, or through the discussion boards, or posting within the course, those kinds of things, so that does come full circle as you're picking up ideas and you're putting them into practice, then sharing them back out. And we really hope to grow that community for the participants in this course now, and then the others that will be joining a course later in the fall as their school divisions get ready to roll out Canvas. So we're really excited about the energy that's brought to this, and the opportunity to share out resources. In previous Lunch and Learns, we discussed how fortunate we are in Virginia to have this opportunity where everyone is going about this, or has the opportunity. So it's not a single school division trying to make their way through this, but a really broad and open landscape of individuals adopting this for, again, the functionality of the tool, but also the content that's being built, and sharing out some of those resources and modules and things that are being created for a specific grade or a specific content area. So very exciting. Thank you both to Katie and Biz again for your time, for all of you who participated today and joined in. We appreciate your participation. This has been recorded, and so this will be posted to the course. It's also been sent out through the live stream, which I think Karen posted the link to that in the chat. So a lot of ways to connect back to this information and to the participants and people, and keep these conversations going. So thank you again for attending today. We'll be back tomorrow with another Lunch and Learn, and we'll look to see you then or online in the course. Thank you again.
And how about a big shout out and thank you to Rod Carnell, our intrepid host, who makes sure all this keeps going. It's awesome to have him talking about this, and we're so glad that he's part of this project. And then behind the scenes, you never see him, but Tim Stallmer is working on our YouTube as well. So anyway, it's a cast of thousands, but we appreciate everybody's hard work on this. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.